rolling down the port here pretty good. We've done a lot already this year. We got a lot more coming down the pike over the next few weeks, so buckle up. The good thing about with Florida, you guys can just know that we're getting it done. You don't have to worry about that. You just know we're going to execute. We'll make things happen, and we'll deliver big wins. But I think that when I became governor, we did a great legislative session that did a lot of stuff. Even a lot of like the liberal media outlets were acknowledging this is like the best legislative session in decades, perhaps, because we did so much stuff. We did school choice, banned sanctuary cities, all these other things. And that was true at the time, but I think every year we've done a little bit better and continue upping the ante. But this legislative session will be by far the best that we've done yet in the 4.5 years. And that's good, because at the end of the day, when you're talking about elections and getting involved in politics and all this stuff, it's like, what's the reason why you're doing it? And honestly, we have people on both the left and the right. I mean, they get involved in it, more for clicks or entertainment or to build a brand on social media and all these other things. And for me, that's not why I'm in it. I mean, I get in it because I think you have a chance to exercise leadership and produce results that make people's lives better, to make the state freer. And I think that Florida is a great, did you guys get this book? Or the New York Times was very upset that they had to put this as #1 in the country for 2 weeks in a row. So but if you think back to 2018, we get in by 32,000 votes, less than 0.5%, over 8 million votes cast. And that was not actually out of the ordinary for what goes on in Florida up to that point. So if you look at the governor and president races, 2010, 12, 14, 16, 18, all were 1-point races. And so it was like, okay, the state's in this balance, and you kind of just try to eke out a victory here or there. And so that was kind of the issue. Now, a lot of people told me when I was getting ready to take office, hey, the state is divided politically, there's a very delicate balance, be careful, tread lightly, don't rock the boat, because you lose any support from what you had in 18, then you're not going to be able to get reelected or anything like that. And I understood that, and honestly, it wasn't crazy advice, but knowing me, I rejected that advice. My view is that we won half the vote, but we earned 100% of the executive office and authority, and we would use that. We would pull the levers of power to be able to advance a bold agenda, and that was kind of our framework. And to this day, I said we're going to do it based on principle, based on conviction, based on doing what's right. And so I said I'm not doing any polls to tell me what to think or to do. And to this day, we have not done one poll telling me about these issues or you've got to do what's right. And part of the reason is because a leader is not captive to polls. A leader sets out a vision, executes the vision, delivers results, and guess what? The polls move in your direction when that happens. So we understood that from the very beginning. And we also we're not going to let the media cow us from doing what the right thing is. I mean, the reality is, if I'm not being attacked by NBC and Washington Post and New York Times, then I must be doing something wrong. Of course they're going to go after you when you're over the target. In fact, you see how this works. So a couple weeks ago, we came out and announced that we are going to, in the state of Florida, be prohibiting something called a central bank digital currency. Biden did an executive order last year saying, I want a report about how we can do a central bank digital currency. They want to do it through the Federal Reserve. They want to basically eliminate all forms of cryptocurrency and make those illegal. But what they would do, I think, with CBDC is say, this is the currency and go to a cashless society. Now, what that would mean is any one of your transactions would basically be able to be monitored by the Fed, and they would end up putting ESG criteria, they do social credit scores, all this other stuff. So you absolutely would be in a situation where, oh, because of global warming, you can only use so much money on gas each week, or this or that. You can't buy too many firearms, all this. And I think everyone with half a brain knows that if they had that power, that's what they would do. And so I announced, like, okay, the Fed says that they ideally would get authorization from Congress, but they didn't say they had to, and that's not what the Constitution says. I mean, first of all, I don't think they should do this, but clearly they can't do it without Congress authorizing it. I don't think Congress would authorize it right now, but I think that the danger is they try to do this through executive fiat. So our law that we'll sign in the next couple months, I think would prevent that. Now, if Congress did authorize it, that probably would trump the state, but I think we're providing protection. Texas is going to do it, as well. So we're speaking out about this, and there's also just the fact that, of all the institutions, you trust the Fed to be involved in this. I mean, the Fed, if you look at how much money they've printed since COVID, you go back to March of 20. They do Fauci policies, really hurt the economy. We had to fight, we dragged the country out of lockdown in Florida. That was kind of our main role through all this. And our state obviously was great as a result of that. But they did trillions in fiscal through the Congress and many, many trillions of printed money from the Fed. And so of course you're going to have inflation, when that happens. But then as we got into the next year, Biden does even more stimulus, which was totally gratuitous. But the Fed chairman's like, well, we think inflation's transitory, and we need to unlearn lessons of Milton Friedman. Well, Milton Friedman knew what he was talking about. So he said, like, if you print, you're not going to get inflation immediately. It takes about 18 to 20 months. And sure enough, 18 to 20 months later, you have inflation. The Fed wasn't doing anything to really stop it. It really started going. So then they've just been hiking interest rates, and that's really hurting the economy. It's destabilizing banking. It's all this. So they don't have a good track record as being an economic central planner. They should not have all this authority to begin with, but to give them this power is a mistake. So I'm saying all these things, and there's a lot of people that agree with me. Not everyone's willing to say it, but I mean, I'm out there saying and do something about it. So then all of a sudden you see Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, NBC, all this stuff. DeSantis, he wants to ban something that doesn't even exist yet. He's fomenting conspiracy theories about central currency, all this stuff. And they're all doing this, and they're all in lockstep. And so when you see that happening, the memo went out. They said, hey, you got to do something about this governor. He's over the target, and we got to go. And so that's what they're doing. So to me, I view that as positive feedback, that I must be on the right track. So we said no polls, and you can't let the media cow you. But we also said, when you're an executive, you preside over a branch of government, and you can have the best decision making in the world. You can have great policies, but ultimately you need a cadre of people who are going to work in the executive branch and help carry out those policies. And if you have people in there that are trying to kneecap your agenda,